Adam LZ quits Stranger Co. BMX. Potentially, well, 100%, the biggest BMX related headline that will exist this entire year. When I saw that, honestly, I was in disbelief. That is earth-shaking news. I knew he was gonna quit, but I didn't know that's how it was gonna happen. And to put it quite bluntly, he did it with a bang. Either way, what does this mean for Stranger Co? What does it mean for the riders that are currently on it, including myself? And what does this mean for the future of BMX as a whole? Before we get into any of that, let's talk about what Stranger Co used to be and what it exists as today. So I actually rode for Stranger back when the company just started. It was an idea started by Rich Hirsch, a guy who he mentioned in his video. And at the time, I was the youngest rider on the team, similar to how Adam is currently. So basically, the company Stranger existed in a form previous to its current one back in like, what year must that have been? Like 2009, 2010? The company had just came into existence. I was a junior in high school. I was the youngest one on the team at that point. I mainly had got put on the team to film, but I was also a pretty decent rider at that point. So we had went on like a tiny little trip around LA to make a mixtape. After that, that was pretty much the only interaction with the team that I had. This was before they were making parts. It was kind of just like an idea to be put on the brand. Ironically, I had also been promised money at that point that I had never gotten paid. I was told I would be given money to film. I had actually done a little bit of filming. I'd done some projects, never saw the money for it. So basically at that time I was in high school, I didn't really care. So I just stopped like representing the company or working with them. At that point it was so infantile, it pretty much just meant not communicating with Rich and the company anymore. So fast forward, I go through high school. I don't really have any other bike sponsors because it's not really on my agenda. I'm really focused on filming. I graduate high school, still focused on filming, get a job as a director of photography, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward to when I start YouTube, pretty much simultaneously as I start YouTube, I get placed back on Stranger. Stranger in the meantime ceased being a company probably a year after I had quit while I was still in high school, or maybe like shortly after. They stopped making stuff. They just didn't exist for a bit. And then they had like a resurgence. They had a few people on the team. Gabe Brooks, Augie Simoncini, Miles Rogish, Caleb Quambeck, obviously. Anyways, they're a super core BMX at that point. It was just like, you know, I feel like they weren't necessarily focused on the rider's social media influence. They're only worried about the skills that that rider had. Then they put Adam LZ on the team, which at the time was a complete 180 from what their mission appeared to be, because here's the guy who's probably not the most hardcore rider, but he has such a substantially higher media presence and popularity than anybody else in BMX at the time. Even back then, he was just by far the biggest figure in BMX because nobody was pursuing YouTube at the time like so many people are now, including myself. The placement of him on the team and the fact that he went straight to pro obviously made a lot of people angry, made a lot of people upset. I myself totally understood because I feel like in order to misunderstand the fact that for someone to be unable to understand why Adam LZ was an asset to the team at that time, you have to like completely, I feel like you have to be brain dead to fail to understand why LZ was an asset to the team at the time. But then again, that represents so much of the thinking of core BMX. Like a lot of people watching this, you may not have anything to do with BMX. You may not care, you might not be a rider, you may not be engaged in the scene, so to speak. So all this is like almost irrelevant to you, but to someone who's like core BMX, whatever that even means, like their method of thinking is so different. They disregard popularity, which is very much so a real world measure of substantiality, you know, how popular you are, your influence, and they care only about how good you can do bike tricks or how intense the bike tricks you can do are, how large they are, so to speak. So obviously from a marketing perspective, it makes complete sense for Stranger to put on riders like LZ, like myself, like, I don't know, anyone else with an influence. I mean, we're kind of the only examples when you really think about it. Maybe Nate Richter to an extent because he films stuff. Caleb Quambeck has a large YouTube channel. Now, while he was on the team for the first like year, maybe year and a half or so, I still had nothing to do with Stranger Co. I had nothing to do with making YouTube videos. Well, I was making YouTube videos, but not for myself. I was making them for another company's brand. I was producing content, but pretty much not vlogs. I was making like videos, you know, so a very traditional idea of creating content.
With kissing, for sure. Yeah. And so the reason a lot of people's mouths.
Once I made that switch from creating content as a regular filmmaker, videographer style of making things to becoming someone who uses my face basically to represent my ideas, which I think is at the core of whatever an influencer is or whatever. That's when I started to gain substantiality. That's when Stranger recognized me. They wanted to put me back on the team. They offered me this, they offered me that. At this time, I'm not even sure of LZ's standing with the company. I don't know if by that time he was already bittered. I don't know if he was being jaded, because my communication with LZ is very sparse. We text very rarely, but it's not like a regular talk. We're pretty like neutral, you know? It's not like he's one of my best friends, but we communicate. So I knew that this was going to happen. I knew that he was gonna quit. I'd spoken with him on, various occasions. He asked me about, my intentions with the company. I asked him about his. We kept everything secretive because, it's just nobody's business besides myself and his what we were going through with the company. LZ is on a completely different wavelength when it comes to the following he has and how he represents his brand. He literally put Roman Atwood on a Stranger BMX bike. Like that is, if you don't understand that, then that pretty much puts you in the box of people who probably don't understand why LZ was on the team in the first place and why he was immediately bumped to, this stature of being a pro, having signature products, etc. So here's the thing, like I mentioned earlier, Stranger had owed me money when I was in high school and they never paid it, but I pretty much just let it go. I didn't even really pursue it. That was significantly different than LZ's situation as far as being owed royalties, having his name on products. I mean, it's still at the end of the day work being done, but I consider his loss probably substantially greater than what I had undergone at the time. So obviously it makes sense for him to quit in the fashion that he did. Beyond all that though, what does this mean for the future of Stranger having lost their biggest rider by a large margin? I guess that'll remain to be seen. I mean, there's still a ton of products with his name on it as far as frames that I'm sure they're gonna have to get rid of. I've spoken to other riders on the team, Nate Richter, Caleb Quanbeck, Connor, and obviously Markel. I don't know anyone's particular situation too well, which is, ironic because that pretty much plays into the exact narrative that he was speaking about on his video, that everyone is kind of shielded from the truth, so to speak. I don't know. As you guys know, my main form of reimbursement for representing the company is just going to pick up a bike every so often and then figuring out what to do with that. Along with residuals from you guys using my coupon code, that's pretty much my only source of income. Soon, it'll also include signature parts. Markel, I know, is pretty much receiving zero from the company right now. He's still like at the lower rung of riders. I know Nate gets paid. I pretty much know who's getting paid and who's not because I communicate with everyone on an individual basis and ask, like, literally, did you get paid? Yeah, so I mean, there's not that much of there's not a complete lack of information amongst all of us, or at least amongst myself, because I've talked to everybody, literally everybody on the team. But at the end of the day, will this mean that Stranger dwindles in its popularity as a company? Obviously, it's gonna take a hit from LZ not representing it, because even though he wasn't, he may not have been extremely core BMX, you cannot deny the man's popularity. He's a massive figure on YouTube and in media, period. Like, he's just, even though he's not represented by a BMX company, he's by and large the most popular BMX rider still to this day, and that will continue so into the future because the guy just knows how to run his empire. He just is very aware of where his brand stands, the power of his name, and how to continue to increase his standing in the world, not just, in BMX, because that's such a shrunken, tiny aspect of what is the real world. I don't plan on quitting. I can say that much myself. I'm still happy, I could say, with where I stand with the company. There's a few hiccups here and there, but overall I don't feel utterly jaded as I understand he might. I know Markel's pretty much happy with where he's at. He could probably do with getting more parts more often, but other than that, I don't have any plans to represent any other BMX company, so to speak. Like, say, similar to how after he quit, he's like stating that he's not going to represent any other bike companies. I feel the exact same way. There's no other company that I feel like I would fit into, or that I would actually even want to represent. Part of that keeps me around, but at the same time, even though LZ is at a completely, as I said, a whole nother spectrum of popularity, I don't think I wouldn't be upset if, say, Stranger kicked me off the team, or if I had to quit for whatever reason. Like, I'm not losing anything. I can do without getting 2 bikes a month or 3 bikes a month. I can do without getting a tiny little check from using a coupon code. Like, none of that's really affecting me. So I'm pretty much representing Stranger at this point because I like the company. I like Rich Hirsch. Nothing negative has come about it for myself. Like I said though, LZ and myself, 2 totally different crowds, 2 totally different sizes of audience. His trumps mine 100 every day of the week, so it's almost an unfair comparison, but I mean, I just literally put together one of his signature frames. I don't know what the man's gonna do next. At the end of the day, I just want to say I have the utmost respect for LZ, and he 100% paved the way to make it possible for myself and other folks like me to do what we do. So Thank you, LZ. That's all I gotta say. I mean, it's crazy that things unfolded the way they did, but I'm sure the guy's not gonna have any problems in the future doing what he does. Either way, that is my 2 cents on the situation. I felt as though I should chime in, being, you know, the second biggest rider under LZ on the Stranger team, that I should, you know, mention something about what's going on. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think of this entire thing? This is arguably the largest news that's going to come in BMX this entire year, so I think it's pretty fascinating. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you guys later.